When Ghislaine Maxwell was first sent to FCY Tallahassee in Florida, the media painted it as a low-security facility. But what she walked into wasn't just strict, it was falling apart. Reports from inspectors described the prison like something out of a horror story. Leaking dorm windows that let rain soak through beds, broken cafeteria stools with jagged edges, and food so questionable it came with mold. Rodent droppings were found in storage areas where meals were prepared, and inmates complained about rats darting across the floors. Even staff admitted the environment was unsafe and unhygienic. Maxwell was placed in a massive dormitory packed with nearly 100 other women, all squeezed into bunk beds. Privacy didn't exist. Bathrooms and showers were shared. Conversations carried through the room, and lights never really went out. For someone used to private jets, luxury yachts, and gated mansions, the shift was brutal. It wasn't just prison, it was survival in a crumbling facility. Despite this, Maxwell managed to carve out roles for herself. She worked 6-hour shifts in the prison library, and under the First Step Act, she even began leading etiquette and yoga classes for other inmates. To some, this looked like an attempt to reinvent herself as a mentor. To others, it felt like a strange echo of her old socialite life, teaching manners in a prison filled with broken toilets and peeling paint. But Maxwell's presence didn't exactly make her popular. She became notorious for filing constant complaints, from the quality of vegan food to the way the prison was run. Other inmates and even guards reportedly mocked her as Prison Karen, a label that stuck. Tallahassee was tough on everyone, but Maxwell's reputation made her stand out, and not in a good way. And while she was battling mold, rats, and a collapsing reputation, something unexpected was already in motion behind the scenes. In August 2025, the story of Ghislaine Maxwell's prison life took a turn that stunned experts. Practically overnight, she was moved out of Tallahassee's collapsing low-security prison and into one of the most lenient federal facilities in the country, FPC Bryan in Texas. For most inmates, a transfer like this is routine only if they're classified as non-violent, low risk, and already near the end of their sentence. But Maxwell? She was convicted of sex trafficking minors and still had more than a decade left to serve. That's why her move raised eyebrows. Prison analysts and legal experts called it unheard of. Typically, anyone with a conviction involving violence, exploitation, or sex crimes is disqualified from ever stepping foot in a minimum security camp. These camps are often nicknamed Club Fed for a reason. They look more like college dorms than prisons, with wide-open yards, no barbed wire, and almost no perimeter fencing. The inmates aren't murderers or traffickers. They're usually accountants who cooked the books or executives convicted of fraud. So when Maxwell's name showed up on the roster at Bryan, even insiders were stunned. Victims' advocates called it a slap in the face, saying it looked like she was being rewarded rather than punished. And many wondered, who pulled the strings? What makes the timing even more suspicious is that the transfer came right after Maxwell sat down for a 2-day interview with Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche. Federal officials refused to comment on what was discussed, but critics couldn't help connecting the dots. Was this move a coincidence or the result of quiet cooperation? Either way, Maxwell was no longer surrounded by mold and rats. She was headed somewhere very different, where life behind bars would feel almost unrecognizable. When Ghislaine Maxwell arrived at FPC Bryan in Texas, it was like stepping into a different world. Forget the rats and mold. This facility is often described as one of the most comfortable federal prisons in the country. Some even call it Club Fed. Instead of locked cells and heavy surveillance, Bryan operates more like an open campus. There are no intimidating walls topped with barbed wire, and the dorm-style housing feels more like a college barracks than a maximum security penitentiary. Inmates move around relatively freely during the day, with only head counts and roll calls anchoring their routine. Privacy is still minimal. Everyone shares space, But the environment is far less oppressive than the crumbling dorms Maxwell left behind. Then come the amenities. Inmates at Bryan have access to a full gym, an outdoor running track, intramural sports, and even ping-pong tables. Fitness programs include yoga and Pilates classes, and music lessons are available for those who want them. While Tallahassee's cafeteria served meals described as inedible by some, Bryan's commissary lets inmates supplement their diets with a surprisingly wide variety of items. Reports say women there can spend up to $360 a month on everything from snacks to beauty products. One detail that caught attention: the commissary even sells L'Oreal anti-aging cream, a strange reminder that, even behind bars, appearances matter. For Maxwell, this must have been an almost surreal change. One month, she was scrubbing mold off her food tray. The next, she had access to a jogging track and personal care items. While she is still an inmate, the daily grind at Bryan looks nothing like the chaos she endured in Florida. But even in this cushier environment, Maxwell doesn't get every privilege. In fact, one of Bryan's most celebrated programs has shut its doors to her completely. One of the most beloved programs at FPC Bryan isn't the yoga or the commissary, it's the puppy program. Officially run by canine companions, the initiative allows inmates to train service dogs that will one day go on to help people with disabilities. For many women serving time, it's more than just a pastime. It's a lifeline. Caring for the puppies brings comfort, purpose, and even a sense of redemption. Former inmates have said the program changed their lives, giving them a chance to give back while also softening the loneliness of incarceration. But for Ghislaine Maxwell, that door is firmly closed. Despite Bryan's reputation for leniency, Canine Companions enforces one ironclad rule: anyone convicted of sex crimes involving minors is automatically barred from participating. No exceptions. So while other inmates get the chance to bond with dogs, build skills, and feel part of something bigger, Maxwell is left on the sidelines. This ban is more symbolic than it might seem. In a place where so many women compete for the few programs that make prison life meaningful, exclusion isn't just about rules, it's about reputation. Maxwell is already infamous, and her crime ensures she'll never be allowed near the prison's most celebrated rehabilitation initiative. For the other women, her absence from the program may even come as a relief. After all, training service animals requires patience, trust, and empathy. The very qualities many believe Maxwell betrayed long before she ended up behind bars. So yes, FPC Bryan comes with comforts, but it also comes with clear limits for someone with Maxwell's record. And those limits would only grow sharper when she came face to face with the women she now had to live among. If Maxwell thought that her transfer to Bryan meant a fresh start, she quickly learned otherwise. Life at Club Fed might come with jogging tracks and commissary perks, but it doesn't erase who you are or what you've done. Most of the women housed at Bryan are serving time for white-collar crimes: tax fraud, wire fraud, embezzlement, or similar non-violent offences. These inmates often keep a low profile, focused on doing their time quietly and avoiding trouble. Into this environment walked Ghislaine Maxwell, a name synonymous with one of the most notorious scandals of the century. Her arrival did not go unnoticed. According to reports, prison staff explicitly warned other inmates not to talk about her, especially not to the media. That only fueled tension, making Maxwell stand out even more. Some women reportedly reacted with open hostility, shunning her in the dorms and cafeterias. Others whispered that she was receiving special treatment just by being placed at Bryan at all, which immediately set her apart from the rest. Isolation in prison doesn't always come from locked doors. Sometimes it comes from social exile. While she had managed to carve out a role at Tallahassee, teaching yoga, working in the library, at Bryan, Maxwell found herself under heavier scrutiny. She may have been surrounded by women serving softer sentences, but many of them wanted nothing to do with her. For someone who once thrived on social connections, This new reality might feel more punishing than any cell. She wasn't just another inmate, she was the inmate everyone had an opinion about. And as whispers spread, the bigger question loomed. Why was she even here in the first place? The biggest mystery about Maxwell's move isn't the yoga classes or the commissary perks. It's how she got here in the first place. For years, experts on federal prisons have said the same thing. Convicted sex offenders, especially those tied to minors, don't get sent to minimum security camps. It just doesn't happen. Which is why Maxwell's transfer wasn't just unusual, it was almost unthinkable. So what changed? The timing raised a lot of eyebrows. Just before the move, Maxwell reportedly sat down for a rare 2-day interview with Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche. Officials kept quiet about the details, but the sequence of events was impossible to ignore. Days later, she was relocated to one of the cushiest prisons in the country. That's all it took for whispers of cooperation to swirl. Did she share information, offer testimony, provide names or insight into her former circles of power? The Department of Justice hasn't confirmed a thing, but the optics are hard to ignore. Legal experts were blunt. This kind of transfer is truly unheard of. Victims' groups echoed that sentiment, calling it a betrayal of justice. To them, it looked less like punishment and more like a reward, a perk given to someone who still had over a decade left on her sentence. Of course, there's another possibility. That Maxwell's legal team pushed hard for the transfer under the guise of safety concerns or health accommodations. In other words, that it was bureaucracy, not backroom deals, that landed her in Bryan. But few people are buying that explanation. The pattern is too suspicious, the timing too neat. Whether or not she cooperated may never be confirmed. But her move has already left many wondering if we've only seen the surface of the deal and what else could be happening out of sight. Step back, and the contrast is almost surreal. In Florida, Maxwell's prison life meant rats in the food storage, mold on the walls, and 100 women stacked in bunks under a leaking roof. Her complaints, whether about vegan meals or broken facilities, earned her mockery and the nickname Prison Karen. Survival there meant enduring crumbling infrastructure and constant humiliation. Fast forward to Texas, and the picture changes entirely. At Bryan, she has access to a gym, yoga and Pilates classes, intramural sports, and a commissary that sells everything from snacks to L'Oreal anti-aging cream. Instead of being trapped in filth, she can walk an outdoor track, sign up for recreation programs, and spend up to $360 a month on extras. It's not freedom, but it's closer to comfort than punishment. And yet, comfort doesn't mean acceptance. The puppy program, the crown jewel of Bryan's rehabilitation efforts, is permanently closed to her. Other inmates treat her with suspicion, even hostility, keeping her at arm's length. In many ways, she's more isolated now than she was in Tallahassee. That's the paradox of Maxwell's prison life today. Physically cushioned, but socially exiled. To some, her transfer looks like an outrageous reward for someone who should never have set foot in a minimum security camp. To others, it's proof that power, connections, or cooperation can bend the rules in ways ordinary inmates could never dream of. So, has Ghislaine Maxwell managed to secure one of the cushiest prison upgrades in US history? Or has she simply traded one kind of punishment for another? Her story may not end here, and the real reasons for her transfer could still be buried out of sight. But one thing is certain. Her prison life now looks nothing like the crumbling nightmare she left behind.